Hello, YouTube. It's Gava Guy. Um, it's been a little while since I've put together a video. Um, I've been busy. We had 2 weeks ago, it was the first week of school, so we had kind of a week before that where we were busy getting ready for the first week of school. Then we had the first week of school, and um, that's always a busy time of the year for us. My wife is a teacher. Um, and then last week, I had some intensive training uh, to prepare for a certification for my job. I passed my exam, so hooray, now that's done. Um, Today is Labor Day in the US, which means we've got a holiday. And so I had a little bit of time this morning and just thought I'd make a quick video. I wanted to. It's been a while since my last video, which was hangout with Matthew Bell, and and obviously I've had a lot going on since that time and haven't really had a chance to put together anything reflecting on that. And I always kind of like to have a little kind of wrap up and thoughts reflecting on conversations like that. So I don't know, for any of you who haven't seen, there were actually two hangouts that I had where Matthew Bell participated, and neither of them went the way I would have liked them to. Um, I like to have conversations. I like to have discussions, but the with Matthew Bell, he chose to use the opportunity to kind of berate me and belittle me, um, and, and I'm not really interested in that kind of interaction. Um, and I was disappointed because I think Matthew Bell is a smart guy. He may very well be more intelligent than I am. He's certainly done his homework on a lot of philosophical arguments and things like that. And I had, for some of you who may have heard my discussions in the past and things, I did study philosophy. That was 6 or 7 years ago, and I haven't kept up with it. So, um, I don't have the time that it requires to uh, keep up with this, but it's these arguments that Matthew Bell has advanced as having merit are arguments that I've heard in the past. I've watched videos with debates from people on kind of both sides of the divide, and I've still come down on the side that I arrived at originally after having been a Christian for 30 years and studying philosophy and looking into my faith and trying to examine it objectively to ascertain whether or not it had merit. And my conclusion was still the same. I finally decided Christianity does not seem credible. I found that there were some significant problems with the Bible and with the God that was described in the Bible, and so I came to a point where I could no longer believe in the Bible or in Christianity, and beyond that, I still don't see any reason to believe that there is a God who certainly not who is active, and I don't find it compelling any reason to believe that there is any God that is even responsible for uh, the creation of the universe and things like that. I think that um, Yeah, and this is a question where, the kind of the deist God that created things and then was hands off from there. That's the argument that has probably the most weight, and I think that's why Matthew Bell tends to defend those arguments most rigorously, because yeah, I mean, we know the least about those kinds of things that could lead you to that conclusion. It's the most fuzzy science that we have, as far as there's just so much that we don't know about what exists beyond our solar system, and um, the space time thing is still very, very much a mystery to us. Um, and even light itself, which is the foundation for all of the conclusions that we've come to with regard to the origins of the universe and cosmic evolution and things. So to try and go beyond what scientists have said and say, well, all of these things, now let's draw further conclusions from them about a personal God and about personhood that had to have been the cause and things like that, just does not seem credible for me. Which leads me to the next point. I mean, so my first point is that Matthew Bell really did not advance any arguments. His main thrust in these discussions seemed to be to point out the fact that I don't have those arguments memorized. The arguments by his favorite guy, William Lane Craig, nor the kind of counter-apologetic arguments that have been posed against him. And it's at a certain point in our conversation, I got frustrated and said, well, you may as well be arguing that there's a moth or something to that effect. I brought up the idea that why not just conclude that a moth created the universe? It was a giant, powerful moth, and he laughed. He was incredulous at the idea that a moth could be responsible for the creation of the universe. And I didn't articulate this well. I didn't kind of connect the ideas, but really kind of what was behind bringing up that idea is the fact that Matthew Bell was berating me for and critical of me for not being familiar with William Lane Craig's basically 5 arguments to lead us to the conclusion that there had to be a deity or a person responsible, a personhood, whatever that means, responsible for the Big Bang. And to me, it would be no different to say, well, okay, you don't know, a 5-pronged argument that leads you to the conclusion that a moth was responsible for the creation of the universe. I mean, I'm skeptical that you can get there. If you want to lie or lay out those arguments and those reasons for me, I'll take a look at them. But I don't have to go down the path of everyone's claim about every little thing. I mean, I can pretty much discount a lot of things on their face just because they're so irrational. You couldn't get to a moth based on the calculations that we have. Based on observations that we've made of the expansion of the universe and things like that. It just, you can't get there. It doesn't matter how many arguments you have or whatever. And I don't think that you can get to personhood based on those calculations either. And now it's true. Matthew Bell kind of laughed and said, "Oh, see here, to all those who are watching, this is what the atheists come up with, a moth." Well, that's a real thing, and we can say, we can draw conclusions about it. Um, well, yeah, it's a thing that's defined, and there may be some definitions of personhood too, but personhood is very much more abstract. It's harder to pin down, and that makes it uh, that much more difficult to actually say whether or not we can get to it. Um, kind of the more mystical and abstract and intangible an argument becomes, and the more you rely just on uh, kind of a gut feeling or intuition, the more skeptical I'm going to be that it's a credible thing. People tend to believe in souls and spirituality and things like that. Well, what does that mean? What is it? Can you define it? Can you test it? Can you look at it? And yeah, I lean toward um, empiricism as a means of looking at the world and discerning between true and false claims. But the reason for that is because it seems to be the best tool that we have. So, uh, and that doesn't mean it's true. That doesn't mean it's right. And Matthew Bell was not familiar with Thomas Kuhn's uh, structure of scientific revolutions and things. I mean, that's a book that anyone who's not familiar with it should look into it. It's a good book. It brings up a lot of issues with science, as well as David Hume's, inquiry into human understanding. Um, we do need to acknowledge the the facts about empiricism and about just um, induction in general, and be aware that there are issues with it, and it's not perfect, but it seems to be a reliable tool. It has uh, given us huge advantages and uh, brought us so far in the last few hundred years that we've employed uh, uh, naturalistic methodological naturalism for inquiry into the world and how things work. Um, so yeah, I'm biased towards that as a means of discerning truth. Um, and anyone who is not, or who thinks they aren't biased towards that, I think you're kidding yourselves, because it's you wouldn't go to uh, a witch doctor or someone, or you might go to a faith healer, but you're probably also going to go to a medical doctor to get examined for by and use tech where someone would use techniques advanced by Western medicine and science, and if you were going to leave off one of those, you'd probably leave off the faith healer. And we can see results of people who have left off the Western medicine and gone to faith healers or just prayed themselves. And people who do those things don't live as long. Their children die. I mean, there are whole cemeteries and graveyards. I did a blog post about this where I cited statistics and things of it's just a fact of the matter that parents who and families who deny Western medicine and rely exclusively on prayer and faith they have much higher rates of mortality from illness and disease than do people who rely on a combination of the two or exclusively on Western medicine. Um, so, where are you going to kind of put your trust? And my conclusion is that based on those observations, claims made in the Bible are not true. My study into theories of justice and ethics leads me to conclude that the God described in the Bible is not just or moral. And unless you can provide me arguments that demonstrate that I'm mistaken on those counts, and or that maybe the data that I'm looking at is incorrect, something along those lines. That's what it would take to convince me that I'm mistaken or wrong. There are some other Christians on YouTube who have been kind of poking at me and saying, "Hey, take a look at this video or this preacher, Gabagai. If you do this, you'll understand that Christianity." And to those Christians, Ben Dumas, I think, is one of them, and there are some others too. I was a Christian. I'm familiar with the gospel story. And I don't know. I grew up as an evangelical Christian. I believed the Bible for 30 plus years of my life. And so, and I guess I was in a Protestant denomination. If you want to present some other interpretation, but if you believe that the message of the gospel, that humanity is flawed and that each one of us is destined for eternal damnation, that God wanted to provide us with a path to salvation in spite of the fact that we are failed humans, and sent his son to die on the cross and rose that Messiah from the dead, so that we could be forgiven of our sins. That's the gospel message that I grew up with. If you have some alternate version of that and think that it's important, or some important distinction that you think I'm missing or component of that, I don't believe that. I used to believe it, and now I don't. And I don't. You can provide me with all kinds of scripture. I don't take the Bible seriously anymore. I used to. I used to think that it was God's, perfect word to mankind. And I came to a place where I think it was written by men, and is no different than any of the other sacred texts that claim to have authorship in one way, shape, or form from a deity or some enlightened being. I think they were all written by men, and in some cases they had some good ideas, and in other cases they had some bad ideas. But unless you can provide me with some reasons for believing that those texts were actually, inspired by a god, you're not going to persuade me and convince me. I'm willing to listen, and I've invited a number of you to participate in hangouts. So you're always welcome. I'm interested in the truth, and if I'm wrong, I want to believe what is true. So I'm open, but that doesn't mean I'm just willing to accept anything as truth just because a book says so, or some philosopher thinks it's true, or or what have you. I want reasons and I want evidence. And if you've just got faith, um, I don't buy that. It's not credible anymore to me. I used to think that faith was good. I don't think so anymore. I think that faith is no different than just being gullible. Um, so again, if you would like to join my hangouts, we can have a conversation. Um, I'd be interested in hearing your input and thoughts and things. I want to check one thing real quick. I've got a viewer here, I think, at least one, and I want to just see if. Hang on here. No, nobody's requested in, so I think that's about it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Um, Thanks for watching, and I hope in the coming weeks I'll be able to be a little bit more participatory. Oh, there's one last thing I wanted to just mention. I haven't had time. A lot of times at my desk while I'm working, I'll be able to listen into some videos and things, and I haven't even had much time at work to do that. But I've listened in a little bit and been able to keep up with the Rand Campbell and G-Man and Alex Botten stuff. I don't know. I just those kind of to me it's just a lot of drama, and in a lot of cases it's about not much. I really wish that we could um, not lose focus on and be distracted by some of these things. Um, there are important issues, and I guess there's definitely a place for calling people out and saying, hey, that's inappropriate, or you're not. But I just wish we could be kind. We wouldn't have to be trying to one up the other person. And it's true from atheist to atheist, from Christian to Christian, from atheist to Christian, and Christian to atheist. It's everybody's back and forth. I want to mention that there are atheists who are rude and who are do inappropriate things, and there are Christians who are rude and who do inappropriate things and who are unpleasant. There are also Christians and atheists both who are just lovely people who it's a pleasure to have conversations with them, and I would love to have conversations with them, regardless of their position and final conclusions. And I think that it's good to acknowledge those things. Jungle Jargon, I saw Jungle Jargon made a comment here. I'm going to go ahead and invite you. I've been trying to have hangouts with you, or have been interested in doing that. I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to try and send you an invite here if you're watching now. Jungle Jargon, for those of you who are not familiar with him, he is a regular commenter. I haven't seen him involved in too many hangouts. I'm going to try and do it this way too. I'll send him the link directly through Google Plus here too. And I don't know if you can join me, Jungle Jargon. I'd be I'd be really interested in having a conversation with you. I may drop this from live for right now, and then come back. Okay. So I'm gonna end this hangout and see if I can get Jungle Jargon in the room, and then maybe come back. So